This is Covering the Spread, part of the FanDuel Podcast Network.
It is the final night of hockey before the All-Star break, so we got to talk some NHL tonight with Tom Vecchio and also break down a juicy 9-game slate in the NBA, getting you set for what should be a fun Wednesday night here on Covering the Spread. This is Covering the Spread right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network and numberFire.com. My name is Jim Sonis. I am a senior writer and analyst for numberFire.com, joined here as mentioned by Tom Vecchio. Check him out on Twitter at DFS_Tom. And Tom, happy All-Star almost break to you. A nice little slight break for you, I guess, with a couple fewer things in your docket. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. Yeah, football is winding down. It's the NHL All-Star break. It's basically only one sport, at least till next Monday. I'm ready to go.
And then you get the NBA All-Star break pretty fast after that. So
right,
you're kind of living the life the next couple weeks.
Yeah, and then, baseball will be here before you know it, and then it's the playoffs for the sports. So it is busy. But.
I mean, you can always fill in with NASCAR. It's okay. Fill the gaps that way. We got the Clash coming up Sunday. You can watch it at the Coliseum. It's on Sunday prime time. You don't need to watch Last of Us right away. You can watch that Monday night. Let's watch some NASCAR instead.
If there's a good bet, I'll bet on it and then look at the outcome after. I won't watch it, if I'm being honest.
Define good. I've made bets. I don't know if they're good. We'll figure out that. Once FanDuel posts odds for the Clash, we'll talk about it here on the show, probably tomorrow if I had to guess. But we'll talk about that at some point because I've got to dump it somewhere. So we'll do that here on the show at some point. We will not bore you with that for today. We're going to talk NBA and NHL with Tom in just a bit to get you set for tonight. But first, a reminder to make sure you are subscribed to Covering the Spread wherever you get your podcast. We broke down the AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am with Brandon Gadula yesterday. The timestamp for that is in the description over on the podcast feed, wherever you get that. If you want to skip ahead past NBA stuff from last night and jump ahead to the Pebble Beach breakdown from Brandon, also talked about my read on Super Bowl 57 on Monday. So both those shows are now posted. Get those by searching for Covering the Spread wherever you get your podcasts. Hit subscribe, and if you like what you hear, leave us a rating and review as well. This year, the only app you need for your FanDuel Super Bowl or for your Super Bowl party, good reading, is FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Download FanDuel now so you can bet Super Bowl 57 with a no-sweat first bet. You'll get up to $3,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. FanDuel lets you bet on everything from the money line to point spreads to who will score a touchdown, all in an app that is safe, secure, and super easy to use. Best of all, you can get paid your winnings instantly. So join FanDuel to claim your no-sweat first bet today on Super Bowl 57. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Must be 21 plus and present in select states. First online real money wager only. $10 deposit required. Refund issued is non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire in 14 days. Restrictions apply. See full terms at FanDuel.com/sportsbook. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit FanDuel.com/RG. In Arizona, 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT STEP to 53342. In Connecticut, 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat. In Indiana, 1-800-9-WITH-IT. In Wyoming and Kansas, 1-800-522-4700 or in Kansas, ksgamblinghelp.com. Louisiana is 1-877-770-STOP. In Maryland, mdgamblinghelp.org. In New York, 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. And in West Virginia, go to 1-800-GAMBLER.net. Let's take a look here at the NBA for Wednesday night. Got a couple of nationally televised games tonight on ESPN. Trying to follow up Knicks Lakers, which was a lot of fun last night. We got the Nets and the Celtics, and then the Hawks and the Suns. Any bets you like in those two games specifically here, Tom?
Yeah, starting off, let's go to Jason Tatum, over 9.5 rebounds. That's at plus 102 right now. He's been, I want to say borderline MVP. He started off the year as a true MVP candidate, and Jokic, Luka, and then obviously Embiid lately have all kind of pushed past him. Tatum is still having an awesome year, no doubt about it. So over 9.5 rebounds, this thing at plus 102. He's been over this mark in 4 of his last 5 games, and not only over this mark, he's going over in a big way, right? Where he's up at 14, and 19 rebounds. So and granted, he has a couple games in there where he's right at 9, he's at 6 in some of them, but The Nets still missing a little bit of size with Kevin Durant. He's not out there. And we do have Rob Williams for the Celtics listed as questionable. He didn't start the year. He's actually been dealing with these knee injuries dating back to last year. So to see him miss tonight's game wouldn't be a surprise. I'm expecting him to play, but the thing is, ultimately, they're still not putting Rob Williams out there for like a heavy set of minutes. So when they need bodies out there, Tatum, like being the best player on their team, he's kind of shown this year that he's willing to do a little bit more than just be the scorer. He notices that like the team needs some size. He has to be out there rebounding, and that's showing with these huge rebounding games. So absolutely love over 9.5 tonight.
Now Tatum is 9.5 at FanDuel Sportsbook plus 102. Some other spots have him at 8.5, but it's at minus 142. So you're paying a heavy toll. I'm assuming you prefer the 9.5 number there.
Right, especially this game has a 226.5 over under. It's actually I think it's the lowest on tonight's slate. Which isn't a surprise. The Nets have stepped up on defense a lot recently. The Celtics are just a good defensive team. So to see a slower paced, a lot of missed shots, which means more rebounds type of game, is always on the table. So I'm definitely shooting for 9.5 at plus 102.
Okay, you can get that at FanDuel Sportsbook, as mentioned. Anything else in these national TV games, Tom, for you or no?
The Hawks Suns. A part of me wants to. I would either take the under in this game or completely stay away. The Suns are a pretty heavy under team, specifically at home. They're 11-16 to the over at home. So, and they've been good on defense, and they've defended home court well, as they have for a few years. The Hawks are, on a road trip. Trae Young should probably be back in the lineup tonight. It's kind of just take the under or stay away. It's not something I'm super comfortable with. So I don't have any player props for this game. It's really not super enticing. I do have 3 other plays across the league, which I think are much better games. I
mean, we got 7 games, man. So let's ladder up. What else do you got here across the NBA tonight?
So just to show the disparity of why I'm not super high on this game, Hawks Suns is 229.5. Mm-hmm. We compare that to Kings Spurs, which is up 244, or Warriors Timberwolves, which is at 238. So we're just looking at a much higher scoring expectation. First of all, love the Kings -8 against the Spurs. I think it's a bounce back game for the Kings. They didn't win the other night. I'll just take them straight up -8. They are 27-21 against the spread this year. It's one of the top 5 in the league. The Spurs, not good this year, not good against the spread at 23-8. So very clear bounce back spot for the Kings, who have surprised a lot of people this year. That's number 1. Number 2 would be Steph Curry over 29.5 points at -106. He's been over this mark in 3 straight, over in 4 of 6. And again, this game against the Timberwolves has a 238 over under, which is the second highest on the slate behind this 240, third highest on the slate, behind 244 and 239. Both teams are in the top 10 in the league when it comes to offensive pace. Both teams don't play defense. Both teams like to score the ball. So it's basically everything you want for Curry. We also see the Timberwolves not great against the 3-pointers. So it sets up to be an absolutely phenomenal game. From a fantasy perspective, from a betting perspective, from just a fan perspective. And then finally, going to my guy, Alperen Sengun, again, the Houston Rockets center, over 38.5 points, rebounds, assists combined at -115. Both Jalen Green and Kevin Porter, the 2 primary usage players for the Rockets, are out tonight. And he is that 3rd usage player. So he is now number 1 on their team. And he sees a slight increase in offensive usage, extra production per minute, more rebounds, assists, touches on the ball, etc., when those players are off the court. And he's also going up against OKC, who are allowing 42 combined points, rebounds, assists per game to opposing centers. So I think there's enough leeway there with that extra usage in what is really a soft matchup.
So again, that one was the PRA for Sengun over 38.5 at -111, correct?
Yeah, I saw it at 115 a few minutes ago. Did it move?
Okay. Yeah, it's at 111 right now at FanDuel Sportsbook on the over there. That is, again, in the Rockets Thunder game for Sengun. And then Steph Curry, 29.5. That's still -106 at FanDuel Sportsbook. Within the Warriors Timberwolves game, Kings -8. If you were looking at those, Tom, and trying to decide, maybe I don't want a super full card tonight. Maybe we're just looking to, put in a couple bets. Which one do you feel the best about it in that group?
Well, Tatum's my number 1.
Yeah. Okay.
Tatum would be number 1. Sengun would definitely be last. Like that. And then it's kind of a toss up. Do you expect the Kings to bounce back? Mm-hmm. I think they do. So I would take Tatum, Kings, Curry, Sengun in that order.
That's the order you gave them. That's the order they're in. It's a beautiful symmetry. Love that, Tom. All right. So that's a fun 9-game slate across the NBA for tonight.
One thing I'll note is because we are coming up to the trade deadline.
Yes.
Which is 8 days away. It's next Thursday, the 9th. So this is the time of year where NBA is obviously very specific when it comes to, or very unique when it comes to injuries and injury reporting. So it's not going to be surprised to see the players intentionally get sat by teams and or to see their minutes start to get limited. So as you know, you're starting to read these reports from Woj, from Shams Charania, from any of these, reporters that like, oh, this player's name is popping up in terms of, his interest in teams because this team's going to be a seller. Like you can either start taking unders on those players because they're not going to be playing, and or they're going to be playing less. And even if they don't play, it's a void bet, whatever. Right. And then the other thing is you can start taking overs on their teammates, because if they're not going to be playing as much, that gives the potential for their teammates to see more who are not in trade rumors. So and I would say monitor the news, especially if you're betting on teams and you say, okay, I like this team. All of a sudden a player gets ruled out and that number changes dramatically, especially because teams are targeting good players to trade for. So it could be key players from kind of weak-ish teams that are looking to sell.
Which teams are you flagging specifically as being not no-fly zones, but I would say teams of particular interest where you may be looking at unders on guys who are on the trade block or overs on correlated teammates and stuff like that?
So Bojan Bogdanovic on the Detroit Pistons, his name has kind of popped up a little bit. Good veteran player, can certainly shoot a lot of threes. He's probably the best player on the Pistons right now because Marvin Bagley and Cade Cunningham are both out. Mm-hmm. So he's a player that's been popping up. Would not be surprised to see him be traded. And like a line tonight for the Spurs is at, they're +6. If he gets ruled out tonight, I wouldn't be surprised theoretically if he were to get ruled out. He's not injured. But I could see that line jump to 8 or 9.
Right.
And he's probably, since he's their best player, it just lowers their scoring expectation overall. So the Pistons are probably pretty key for me. Someone from the Raptors is going to get traded. That's a big team. So they've been ruling out OG Anunoby. He's not too much of a surprise to get traded. A lot of teams are targeting him. I don't think they're going to trade Fred VanVleet, but these are 2 key starters. And then potentially always Gary Trent could be moved. So we're talking about 3 of their 5 starters of players that have popped up in trade rumors. And if they were to get ruled out or traded in any of these games, that line would plummet, in against them. So the Raptors, I think, are a very, very key team leading up to the next 8 days in the trade deadline.
And let's say you want to be low on someone, like let's go back to Bogdanovic again. Let's say you want to be low on him. He's not a big, non-point scoring guy in terms of a PRA bet, but are you primarily looking at PRA bets because it gives you more routes to an under there? Because, okay, he goes off for 23 points, which would get him over 22.5, which is his prop, but maybe he doesn't do a whole lot elsewhere due to the reduced minutes. Is that the primary route you're going to fading guys you're potentially wary of here, or how are you doing that?
Yeah, it obviously comes down to a per-player basis. He can be a very effective scorer. He doesn't always do a whole lot when it comes to rebounding and assists. So I think that he could get there on points but still hit the under on PRA. That's a good way to put it. And then, Sadiq Bey or Alec Burks, those are players that could theoretically benefit from scoring if he were to be out.
Okay.
And this is obviously there's obviously permutations for every team and every iteration, but you just kind of keep that in mind when you're betting on players or teams.
Having a flag in your mind of okay, I am into this player, they are in this. Let me double check to make sure I actually feel comfortable with this. Kind of going through that process to making sure you feel good there. Okay. Now we also have an interesting one in the NHL side because this is the final night before the All-Star break. Just 2 teams in action, or 2 games in action for tonight. But Tom, when you're looking at the NHL side of things, with the All-Star break looming, in the NBA, we'll sometimes see guys get scaled back because, they're about to go to the All-Star break and stuff like that. Does that happen in the NHL too, where we may see guys get reduced ice time with the break, or do they play more given that they have a rest coming up? How does that work in the NHL, or is there no impact at all?
There's really no impact at all. And specifically because of these 2 matchups tonight, I really don't see that happening. Players are out there. It's a little bit tougher in NHL where it's like in the NBA, you could have a bench, just take a player off the bench and he can play 30 minutes.
Right.
Where in the NHL, no one can skate for 30 minutes. Even on the low end, the 4th line guys are still going to see 9 to 10, 12 minutes. And sure, maybe the top line center doesn't see 22 minutes, maybe sees 19, but that's not really a massive change. Okay. So I don't really factor that in at all. I don't think I ever have, unless a player is actually ruled out. if he's on the top line, he's going to be playing 18 minutes a night.
Yeah. Music to my ears. Means we can proceed forward with no reservations and talk about this NHL slate. We got the Bruins and the Maple Leafs. We got the Hurricanes and the Sabres. Let's start off here with the traditional markets, Tom. Anything you like across those two games there?
Yes, that would be Bruins Leafs over 6. That's at -104 right now. Really interesting matchup. This has been a heated rivalry over the past 5+ years. The Bruins are, as I've said before, they are the best team in the NHL. They are coming off they are right now on a 3-game losing streak, which is their longest losing streak of the year. Prior to these past 3 games, they had not lost more than 1 game in a row at any point in the season. They had not lost 2 games in a row. They are this dominant this year. They are the favorite right now to win the Stanley Cup. I think they're plus 600 right now to win the Stanley Cup. I could double check this real quick.
It's 500 now.
Plus 500. I have them back from October at plus 1,600 to win the Stanley Cup. So I am all in on the Bruins this year.
Yep.
So it's literally a shock to see them lose multiple games in a row this year. That's how good and the fact that it's been 3, and the fact that this is one of their biggest rivals.
There was some stat like 2 nights ago where it was the first night the Celtics and Bruins lost in the same night since like February of last, or some crazy time last year.
Yeah, I saw that. I think it was February of 2022.
Yeah.
That's how dominant the Bruins have been. So, and they just hit 10 total losses like a few days ago. Mm-hmm. And they've been playing since October, which is unbelievable. So I love over 6 because I expect a bounce back. Also, when we look to the Maple Leafs, again, looking at their goals and expected goals, specifically in the last 2 weeks, they're only allowing 2.07 goals against per 60 minutes in 5v5 situations over the last 2 weeks, which is the 9th best in the league. However, if we look at their expected goals allowed in that same time, it's up at 2.90. So they're overproducing by almost 0.9, which is pretty substantial given the fact of some of the injuries they have. They're missing their best player, Austin Matthews. He's out for a couple of weeks. And we have the Bruins that clearly need to bounce back, and I would expect them to bounce back regardless of who they'd be playing. So the goal scoring potential for the Bruins has been there all season, especially against a defense that has been overproducing. So over 6 -104 would be the spot that I go, and ultimately you get 6. The game ends 4-2. It's a push.
Yeah. -104, like you said, at FanDuel Sportsbook for the Bruins and the Maple Leafs, the over on that total there. What about the prop markets? Anything you're seeing in that regard?
Yeah, that would be going to Brad Marchand on the Boston Bruins for a goal, plus 190. He is, if people out there don't follow the NHL, Brad Marchand is like known as the #1 pest in the league. He is the player that you hate playing against, but if he's on your team, you absolutely love him.
He's AJ Brzezinski. Okay, cool.
I think he's hilarious. He has all these antics. He's a phenomenally skilled player, but he has a lot of antics on the ice. I think he's very funny. Plus 190. He's a player that's on the first forward line. He's on the first power play. He takes good volume of shots. Like, he's checking all these boxes. He hasn't scored in a couple of games, and he's going up against this defense, which I am expecting to regress. And we need the Bruins to bounce back.
And we need the over on the goal total, which correlates with this. So that's good.
So it's not just, they could be going up against, I would say, almost any team. And I would still like Marchand for a goal because, their offense has not been playing well. They've been on this weird, I'm going to say a weird 3-game losing streak, which is insane to say.
Right.
But he has all these factors going in his favor before we even factor in the matchup against the defense that should be regressing. So Marchand plus 190 for a goal. For a top-line guy at plus 190 is pretty good.
Yeah, plus 190 for Marchand at FanDuel Sportsbook, and you can't parlay these. I don't believe they have like SGPs for NHL, so you can't parlay them together, but they do correlate well. So you can place the two individually. If you hit one, you're more likely to hit the other. So over 6 at -104, and then Marchand to score plus 190. I do need to take back the Pierzynski comp because I hated AJ Pierzynski even when he was on the Twins. So that's not actually totally accurate. He sucked regardless. But so maybe I'll withdraw that. I don't want to put the Pierzynski stink on to Brad Marchand.
No, I certainly get that, but if you like, there's some things about him that's interesting. Like, he's out there on the ice, and when they, he's like licking players' faces when they get like
what?
So
he's Lance Stevenson. Okay,
he's like a really interesting character. I think he's great, even though he's not on the Rangers. I think he's hilarious. He's out there like licking guys' faces. He's always like pushing them after the play a little bit more than he probably should be. He does get called for penalties, but it's all part of like getting under the opposing team's skin.
I mean, licking their faces would do that. That's accurate.
He's really good at it. He's really good at it.
He's good at the licking or good at getting under people's skin, to clarify?
The latter and the former impacts
both?
the latter. Yeah.
Okay, he's good at both. He's a well-rounded, talented guy. I am disturbed. I mentioned Last of Us earlier on. Watching that show makes me not want to think about face licking because I'm bothered behind all get out. So I'm going to pass on that part. But the Marchand one plus 190 and the Bruins over 6. The Bruins Maple Leafs over 6. I think that makes a lot of sense. All right. So hopefully that sends us off to the All-Star break on a good note. One more
for the other game. Rasmus Dahlin, the defender for the Buffalo Sabres, over 2.5 shots.
Okay.
At plus 106. Expecting a high-paced matchup in this one. Two teams that like to push the pace on offense. Two teams that are very good on offense. Two teams that take some shots. Dahlin is having the best year of his career. He's, I would say, kind of a borderline sneaky candidate for the Norris Trophy, which is the best defender in the league. He's been over this mark in 4 straight games. He's on the first power play. Basically everything that we want. We do see the Canes on the second night of a back-to-back with travel for them, which is always good, which means they'll probably be starting Antti Ranta in net tonight because it was Frederick Anderson last night. Everything going in the Sabres. I don't want to say everything going in the Sabres' favor. The Canes are clearly the better team, but Dahlin is in a good spot tonight.
Yeah, that's in the Hurricane Sabres game again. The shot market, Rasmus Dahlin over 2.5 is plus 106 over at FanDuel Sportsbook. So pretty good card, I think, for tonight across the NBA and the NHL. It's not bad.
And this game does have a 6.5 over-under. Again, that half goal higher than the Bruins Leafs. So, expecting some more goals in this one compared to the other one. So get those shots on net.
I think you're going to have a fun night. 9 NBA games, 2 NHL games, final one. Do you watch the NBA or the NHL All-Star game, or is that not a viewing experience?
Honestly, the skills competition on Friday night is more interesting.
I used to love the skills, like the fastest shot. Yeah,
hardest shot.
The skating competitions. Skating competitions are sick. They should put those in the NFL Pro Bowl, a skating competition. I'd watch that.
I'm pretty sure you can bet on those markets as well in some spots. I don't know if they're up. But the All-Star, they're here right now. Or you can bet on the this is for Saturday's games for the individual matchups between the divisions.
Oh, so they do 2 games?
Well, they do the West will play the West, and then the East will play the East, and then the winners of each play each other. But it's 3-on-3. It's not 5-on-5.
Oh,
it's the overtime rules. And
oh wow, that's even cooler. Okay.
Frankly, I would take I'll just throw this out there. I would just take the Metropolitan Division at plus 330, tied for the longest odds to win. I understand why they are the longest odds because the other divisions, I think, just objectively have better forwards when you look at the Atlantic, and especially when you look at the Pacific with Connor McDavid out there. But the Metro Division also objectively has the 2 best goalies with Igor Shesterkin and Ilya Sorokin. So push comes to shove, I would take the goalies. When, if you have Jack Hughes and Artemi Panarin out there, they can match up with basically anyone in the league.
Okay. Well, that is Metropolitan team to win the NHL All-Star Tournament, plus 330 at FanDuel Sportsbook. I love it. Tom going above and beyond what is asked of him to give you hopefully good bets here for this night. Anything else for you, Tom, before we close up shop for today?
No, that's it. I think we're in for a pretty awesome night. Have a lull for a few days, and then we'll be on the path to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I am excited for that already. It's going to be a blast all next week breaking down Super Bowl 57, but also hopefully a blast tonight across the NBA and NHL. That is Tom Vecchio. Check him out on Twitter at DFS_Tom. Check out all of his prop work over at numberFire.com as well. And the Daily ISO is Daily Fantasy Basketball Podcast on the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed. Tom, thank you for the time as always, and good luck to you tonight.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All righty. Again, check out Tom on Twitter at DFS_Tom. We'll be back once again tomorrow with Austin Swain. Going to talk about some NBA bets and also UFC in case you need to fill that hockey size and NFL size void in your heart for this weekend. We'll talk about some UFC as well. Get that by subscribing to Covering the Spread wherever you get your podcasts. I am on Twitter at Jim Sannes, JIMSANNES. You can also follow the FanDuel Podcast Network at FanDuel Podcast. We'll talk to you all once again tomorrow. Good luck tonight. This has been Covering the Spread right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network.